Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Stitch Sessions. This week we're jumping back into our series called The Year of the Bride. And for the month of March, I'm going to show you how to make these really pretty vintage bridal gloves. And it just consists of mostly single crochet stitches, so this is actually a really decent project for all of you beginners out there. And it just will take a little bit of patience because there's a few little nuances to working the pattern, but it comes out so pretty and so lovely. I love how this lacy effect came out, and we added this really pretty little ribbon at the end and gave it a really beautiful little edging, and I just think it makes for a fantastic accessory on any bridal outfit. It could be for the bride, or actually it can be for bridesmaids, especially if you are sticking close to a vintage theme for your wedding. So without further ado, let's get all of our materials together and let's start stitching up our vintage bridal gloves. Okay, so here we go. So in order to make your lacy bridal glove, you're going to need a few things. You will need Premier's Fair Play medium, well actually it's a lightweight 3 yarn, and I've already started using this for another project. So it's a lightweight 3, and it is 50% cotton and 50% acrylic. I actually don't have the label, but I'm going to put a graphic up of what it looks like up on the screen here so you guys can see. And you can find this at your local Michael's. I haven't seen these at Walmart, but anyway, it's a great feel because it's fairly lightweight, but it still feels really, really nice. So that's what you're going to need for your yarn. Of course, you'll always need a pair of scissors and a trusty darning needle so that we can sew in some of our ends. And for this project, I used a 4.5 millimeter hook, also known as a G or a 7. Now, I believe the yarn calls for a 4, but I went up a hook size just because I wanted the laciness of the pattern to come out. And so as you can see, I've already done one here. You will also need a little bit of ribbon. This is completely up to you to add some embellishment to the wrist of your glove. And actually this is, and you might laugh to find out what this ribbon is actually from. I'm sure we've all been to the store and bought clothing garments that had these little ribbons on the underside of your shoulders. It's meant to hang on your hangers. Well, I am a weirdo and I cut all of those out and I save them. And for precisely things like this, it works out great because I can always add these little ribbons onto other projects. And I have a whole bag of them somewhere and I can't seem to find where I put them. So in the meantime, it's just like a basic little ribbon. You can actually buy these in spools at your fabric store, Walmart, places like that. So it's just a little bit of ribbon that we're adding there as an embellishment at the end. But again, if you don't want to, you don't have to use that. So let's get stitching. Okay, so to make this glove, we're going to do it a little bit in a little bit of an unconventional way. So many times if you've ever worked on mitten projects or other glove projects, you either start from the cuff and work your way up, or you start from the cuff and work your way down. There are some people that will start a mitten or glove project beginning from the side, and that's actually what we're going to do today, because this will make it really easy for you to judge the size of the glove that you need to make. So we've got the thumb gusset here, and we've got the opening where your fingers are. So we're going to begin along the side. So that means it's going to go from the length of wherever you want to start. So I like to start just around the knuckle portion and go to just above the wrist. And that will leave enough space to do a little bit of embellishment along the top and work a really pretty little cuff at the bottom. Okay, so essentially we're going to start this way, and we are going to work the body of our glove and create these really pretty little eyelet lacy stitches. Okay. Okay, so to begin, if I can get my yarn here. You want to start by placing a slip knot on your hook. Okay, just like that. Then we're going to begin by chaining 14. Now, when you chain, as always, in most of the projects, you want to really make sure that you're not chaining too tightly for that first chain, especially because you don't want your work to bunch at the bottom, or in this case on the side. So you can see I'm keeping mine fairly relaxed. So you're going to chain 14. Once you've chained 14, if you're a little bit unsure if you did it too loosely or too tight, well, in my case, I already have one, but once you do your first one, and you're working on your second one, you want to just take that chain and measure it against the length of the one you've already made. Now, I'm assuming you haven't made any yet. So what you want to do is just double check. For me, it was 14. And again, I'm just using my hand. I have an average size hand, so I'm pretty sure this will fit nicely. And it actually even fit our model, Katrina's hand. Her hands are a little bit longer than mine. In fact, it's mostly her fingers are longer than mine, but the hand portion itself fit pretty decently. So you just take it, just measure it, see how you like where it sits. Again, just around my wrist bone there and just before the knuckle. That's generally how I'm going to gauge that. It's kind of, you can call it an eyeball method, but it really hasn't steered me wrong. So that's what we're going to do. So once you have your 14, or however many you need, we're going to find the second chain from the hook. Remember, we never count the chain that's on the loop that's on our hook. So we're going to count 1, 2, and into that second chain, we're going to do a single crochet stitch. And then we're going to do 1 single crochet into each chain stitch all the way to the end. So we started off with 14 chains, but you will end up with 13 stitches. So that is exactly the number we want, because in fact for this pattern we want to make sure that we have an odd number of stitches to work with, and that will help us create that beautiful eyelet lacy effect. And I'm just coming up to the last one here, and if you're ever uncertain, just go back and count. So I know I have 13 stitches here because I counted. Oh, you can see where I joined the yarn there. And so that is what row 1 will look like for you. At the end of row 1, what you're going to do is you're going to chain 3 now. And we're chaining 3 because, I'll tell you in a second, we're going to turn our work. We've chained 3 because this will count as 1 half double crochet plus 1 chain. Okay, and that is going to count for how this pattern is going to work. So what we're going to do now is we're going to skip the next stitch. So we don't count this first one here because that belongs to the chain 3 situation. We skip the one beside it and we go into the next chain. And what we're going to do, the next stitch, is you're going to do 1 half double crochet into that stitch. Just like that. Okay, so it's going to create a little bit of an opening, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, then we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip the very next stitch, and into the stitch after that, we are going to half double crochet. And that is our pattern all the way to the end. Okay, so chain 1. Skip the next stitch and into the following stitch, half double crochet. Okay, so you can see now it's creating the little openings for our eyelets there. That's exactly what we want. So we'll chain 1 again, skip the next one into the next one, half double crochet. So this is the beginning of the lacy effect that we have here. I'm going to chain 1. Oops, I've already done that. Chain 1, and into my last stitch here, I'm going to do a half double crochet. So I should still end up with 13 stitches at the end. So we have 1, 2, because there's a chain there, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Perfecto. So that's the end of row 2. So moving on to row 3, what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And for row 3, we're going to go back to working single crochet stitches, but what we're going to do is we're going to work into the back loops only. So we've chained 1, so we're going to go right away into this very first stitch here, and we're going to go into the back loop. So usually we would go into there as the stitch, but we're going to go up the top, the back loop, it's the one furthest away from me, and I'm just going to do a single crochet. Now the next stitch is a chain, so it's going to be a little bit tricky. Just find the loop wherever you can. Sometimes people would have worked into the space, but because we want to make sure that we get all of the loops, I'm working right into that chain. So right there, I'm going to insert and single crochet. Okay, and now the next one is actually a stitch. So see, if I turn my work there, you can see all the V's, the tops of the stitches. It helps to make it easier to find your work. So I'm just going to insert there and single crochet. And that's what we're going to do for the entirety of row 3 of our pattern here. And so you can do this all the way at the end, and then make sure, I know some of you don't like to count, but counting is important. Make sure that you have your 13 stitches at the end, and that way you'll know you're on the right track. So I've done a few here. So you can see now that the front loops are being pushed forward. And if I pick up my original glove here, you can see that that's what creates this really pretty little ribbed effect here along the laciness of it. So that's it. Okay, so I'm going to meet you at the end of row 3. Okay, I'm just coming up to the end of row 3, and I just wanted to go over this little spot here with you because if my camera would focus, there we go. We're coming up to where we did our original chain 3, so it's easy for this to kind of get a little bit mixed up. So I just did my back loop of my last stitch. Now I'm going to do this next chain because that would count as my chain space. And now my next stitch would have been into the back loop of a regular stitch, but because it was a chain 3 here we used, it's just literally going to be into the very next chain loop. Okay, so, and then if you're uncertain, just go back and count, and I have counted, so I know that I am correct. I have 13 stitches here, and you're probably going to feel like, this looks a bit weird because it's kind of wonky at the edge. It's totally normal. That chain 3 creates that. Once we start building our work up to have several more rows, it'll even itself out a little bit, but at the end of the day, I'm also not too worried about it because then we're also going to add a little embellishment round as well. So these little kind of divots, I call them, will get hidden. Okay, this is basically our pattern for the hand portion of our glove. And so now all we're going to do is we're going to repeat rows 2 and 3. I repeated mine for a total of 13 times. Okay, so I'm going to start you again back on row 2. So row 2 always begins by chaining 3, 2, 3. You'll turn your work. And then remember that you're going to skip the very next stitch, and into the next one, we're going to do a half double crochet. And eventually it becomes a little easier to find where to go because you'll notice that all of our half double crochets are going to sit on top of each other nicely. So all the little eyelets will sit on top of each other. Okay, so you'll chain 1, you'll skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch, you will do, whoops, I got to yarn over. You're going to do a half double crochet stitch into there. So that is row 2, chain 1, skip 1, and into the next one we go through there. Okay, so I'll just kind of finish this one with you. So you're going to skip 1 and into the next one. And if, by all means, if you already have the hang of this, then, pause the video, do your thing, and then just forward to the next section. But I know some of you might be a little bit of newer crocheters that are excited about doing a more challenging project. So I'm going to do another round with you guys. And of course, you can always pause the video and go back. So I like to kind of look at my work sometimes just to make sure it's all sitting nice and even. And then I've done my chain 1. I'm going to skip this last stitch here, and I'm going to find that chain 1 at the very end, which is going to be right there. Chain 1s get funny, especially with thinner yarn. I want to get that whole stitch because it can be so easy to miss where that first chain 1 went. So you want to be careful not to chain it too tightly. There we go. Oops, I think I needed to do a half double crochet. So see, that's the chain 1, and that's the area right there. And as always, if you're unsure, count your stitches. But at this point now, this is my second time doing this, I can see based on where all the spaces are. So hopefully that'll help you to see. You can see they're sitting nicely one on top of each other. So I know I have the right number of stitches. So now I'm going to repeat row 3, just chain 1. Turn my work, and now I'm just going to do single crochets into the back loops only. So I'm not going to go into the chain 1, I'm going to go into the very next one, which is right there. So that's into the stitch, and the next one is the chain. But if I just pull my work like this, if I turn it like this so I can see the V's at the top, it's super clear where I'm going to place my hook. So that's it. That's all right in there. Do one more here with you. And there we go. Okay, so it's just, now you can really see the laciness of it is really taking shape. And then of course the, oops, let me just turn it this way here. There we go. Nope, that was correct. Of course, you can see kind of the lovely little texture that the ribbed effect is having. So guys, I'm going to set you loose for a little while. I'm going to do my repeat 13 times, row 2 and 3. And if you are feeling like it might not be enough, the best thing to do is once you get the length that you need, wrap it around your hand and make sure, or the hand of whoever you're making it for, and make sure that when you snip it at the top that they can comfortably move their hand around in it. But when I finish my length, I'm going to meet up with you guys and we're going to take you through the next section. So no worries. For now, do your repeat and I'll see you back here shortly. Okay, so I have repeated my pattern 13 times in total. So you should have 13 rows of eyelets going all the way up. And then I finished it with a row of single crochets in the back loops only. So I completed my last row 2 and row 3, exactly that. So you're gonna have something that looks like that. And you might still be thinking, how the heck are we gonna turn this into this? But hopefully you can see the correlation here. See how the ribbing is lengthwise? That is how we're gonna put our glove together. So at this point, what you would do is you take either hand. I'll just, I'll take my left hand. And you're going to wrap this around the body of your hand, just like that. And I'm going to slide mine down a little bit because these two ends are what are going to create your thumb hole. Okay, so what we're going to do is just pinch that in there. And in fact, And the ribbing portion, as you can see, is the right side facing out. So I am going to take a safety pin here, and I am just going to find the very end stitch here in the corners. So right there. Okay, just going to safety pin that together so I've got something to work with here. Then I'm going to fit my hand through it. And I want to make sure that sorry about the focus, guys. I want to make sure that the other corner, see, comes around just like that. So this actually is sitting okay. If you try it on the hand you're making it for and it's just a bit too tight, you can do another row. I definitely think you're going to be okay because we are going to crochet more length to it along the top as well as along the cuff. So I wouldn't panic. So this is looking pretty decent for me. Okay. And so I'm going to leave that pin in there just so that I have a marker, and I'm going to come back up to where we left off because I did not cut my yarn, and we are going to now move on to the next section of our glove. So we're going to bring our hook back in, and we're going to tighten that loop. So what we want to do is we want to slip stitch this corner into this corner so that we've now joined our work. And this is the short tail of our foundation row. So you can see here that this is going to be, this side here was the bottom of our foundation row. So we've got that little tail there. Wouldn't worry too much about it. We can work over it or you can sew it in at the end. But what's beautiful about it is it provides me with that very first stitch we worked and that first chain stitch. And I'm just going to slip stitch to join these two corners together, just like that. See? Now you can definitely see that that's going to be our thumb hole. And then what I want to do is I want to chain one. We're now going to be working in the round, and we're now going to be working along the sides of the stitches we had done, along the sides of our rows. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do one single crochet into the side of each row. Okay, so I am going to go right into the very first side of the single crochet. So the single crochets are fairly easy, and I'm going to work over my tail here. If that distracts you, just push your tail aside and you can weave that in at the end. So I'm just going to bring that through, yarn over, and pull through. Single crochet. Now the next side of a stitch is going to be a space. So I'm just going to work right into that space and single crochet. Okay, and now I'm going to go into the side of the single crochet and single crochet into that. And now I'm going to go into the space. So this just keeps things nice and even, easy to find. Now I'm going to go into side of that stitch there, and it's just going to keep it nice and uniform. And now I'm going to go into the space. Okay, so you can see it's just giving it a really pretty finishing row. So you're going to continue to do that all the way around until we come back to the beginning again. You will then you should end up with 27 stitches, because remember we did our repeat, our 2-row repeat 13 times, plus we had a foundation row. So that gives us 27 rows. If we are working one stitch into the side of each row, that should give us 27 stitches. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Every time you see a single crochet row, like what's really cool is I just go into that first stitch that we single crocheted into. It's really easy to find. And then the next one is just into the space. Okay. And there you are. So it's giving it a nice finished look. Okay, go ahead and finish that first round, and I'll meet you back up when we're at the start again. And I'm almost at the end here, just going into my last space. And now this is my last row here. So I single crochet, and you can see by the opening we're back to the beginning. And now I'm just going to find that first single crochet that I stitched, which is right there, and I'm going to slip stitch to join. So that is the end of round 1 of the top part of our glove. So if I just pull that apart here, so see, we had originally started going this way, and now we've just done an initial round of single crochets. And so that's where we're going to add a little bit of extra lacy embellishment at the top. Okay, so for round 2 of the top, we are going to repeat row 1 or round 1. So you will chain 1. Now it's going to be a little easier because you actually have stitches to work into. And we're going to single crochet into the very first stitch there. And then we're simply going to single crochet 1 stitch into every stitch all the way around. So this means that we will still have 27 stitches in total. Okay, just like that. So go ahead and do your round 2, 1 single crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back up at the beginning again. Okay, and here is my last stitch here, and I'm going to slip stitch back into the very first stitch I started with. And you just want to double check. Sometimes you just want to do a little check again. Make sure that you still have 27 stitches at the end. Okay, so now at the end of the day, if you end up with 26 or 28, it's not the end of the world. But what's really great about getting into the habit of counting stitches is working on consistency. And consistency is what gives your work just that little bit of extra refinedness, if that's a word, in your projects. But again, no one's going to die if you have 1 stitch less or 1 stitch more. It's not a big deal. Okay, so we finished round 1 and round 2. So now we've really got a nice kind of finishing edge here. So now we are going to add a little bit of lacy embellishment, and we're going to use some half double crochet V stitches. It's going to look just like that. So pretty. Okay, and it's going to be very easy. So we will begin by chaining 1. And now right where we just slip stitched out of, if my camera will focus, you're going to do a half double crochet stitch in there. So you're going to yarn over first. And sometimes it can be a little tricky. It's a little tight there. So you're going to, oops. Pull that through and pull it through all 3. Then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to half double crochet back into that same space. So you're going to yarn over and into that same space. We're going to half double crochet. So this creates a V stitch, okay, just like that. So this first one is a little bit thicker because we had that chain 1. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to skip 2 stitches. Okay, so we're going to skip 1, 2, and into the 3rd stitch, we are going to do another V stitch. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook, and pull up a loop to do a half double crochet. So we're going to pull through all 3 of those stitches. We'll chain 1, and then we're going to do another half double crochet right back into that same stitch. Okay, just like that. And we're going to do that again. So after every V-stitch you create, you're going to skip 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and into the third one you're going to do another V-stitch, which consists of 1 half double crochet. You'll chain 1 and then place another half double crochet back into that same stitch. There we go. So now you can really see the V's forming there. So that's 1 and that's 1. That's our first one. So you're going to do that all the way until you come back to the beginning again. So skip 2 stitches, V-stitch. Skip 2 stitches, V-stitch. Okay? Go ahead and do that, and we will meet up with you shortly. Okay, so I'm just at the end here, and I have 2 stitches left, which is perfect. This might look like it's a 3rd stitch, but it's not. It's where we slip stitched, right? So this will now slip stitch to join the very first stitch, which works out perfectly here. So I'm just going to find the top of that first stitch in there, and I'm just going to slip stitch. Whoops, if I can get it in there. Slip stitch to join, and this will complete round 3 of my trim. And I like to kind of pull that out. Now it's very common that as you get kind of get into a groove of projects, sometimes you might start stitching a little bit tighter. So I like to take it out and do the whole hand fit experiment. Okay. And if you're finding that that is a bit snug, you may want to take it out. That's right, I said take it out, and focus on stitching a little bit looser, or you may want to go up a hook size because that will keep it a little bit relaxed. So I'm pretty okay with how this is going because I want it to sit a little bit snugger around my hand. So I'm pretty good. Okay, so that was round 3. We are going to do round 4, and that's going to be another round of V stitches. So I'm not going to make it too much longer over the knuckle because, again, this is supposed to be a bridal glove, and we want to make sure that the bride's rings are able to sit nicely and be seen. If we make a bridal glove that's too long, like sometimes I see bridal gloves that are done down to here, and it really kind of defeats the purpose because she'll have her rings on, and of course it'll catch here. So that is why I've made mine, you know, fairly short-ish on my hand here and just above the knuckle. So that way you can see the rings when they sit on her hand just nicely like that. Okay. All right, moving on to round 4. So round 4 is basically a repeat of round 3, but what's really wonderful and easy about it is that we have our V-stitches already done. The next round is going to be a round of V-stitches again, but we're going to set 1 V-stitch inside the center of each V-stitch of the previous row. What we want to do though, we've slip stitched to join, but we are going to slip stitch one more time right into the center of that first V there, just into that space. And so that gets us starting right in the middle of our first V-stitch, okay? Now what you're going to do is you're going to chain 3. And we're chaining 3 because 2 chains represent the height of a half double crochet and 1 chain will be our spacer. And then we are going to half double crochet back into that same space, okay? So this will count as half double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet. See that? So now we have a V sitting inside of a V. All right, now super easy. We just find our next V-stitch, and inside the spacing of it, we just do another V-stitch. which is 1/2 double crochet, chain 1, 1/2 double crochet. You should be getting very good at this, especially by the time you do your second glove. You'll be very familiar with this stitch. Okay, see? So your V's are sitting on top of other V's. Sheesh, I can't speak today. Okay, I'm going to do another one with you. Here's the next V stitch. We go right into that V stitch and place our 1/2 double crochet, our chain 1, and another 1/2 double crochet. And that's it for round 4. You're just placing one V-stitch inside of each V-stitch of the previous row. Okay, so go ahead and do that. You know what to do, and I'll meet you back here at the top. Okay, and I've got one more V-stitch here. Gonna chain 1 and 1/2 double crochet. Okay, and now we're back at the top. So remember we did that chain 3, so you're going to find the top of the chain 2. So this is the third one. So I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the second chain. Just like that. We've now finished round 4 of the top of our trim. Look at how pretty that's looking. Okay, and now we have one more round, and it's just this really pretty finishing round. So you can see how it kind of just does this cute little mini ruffle, I call it. And that is super easy. It just gives it this nice, pretty kind of flair to it. And that is, you're going to laugh at how easy that's going to be. So we've slip stitched to join. Going on to round 5, you're going to chain 2, and now into the first space here you're going to single crochet, just like that. Now we're going to chain 2 again, and now in the space between the 2 V's we're going to single crochet. Okay, so you can see it's creating these cute little peaks there. Then we will chain 2 again. I think you're starting to get the hang of this. Now into the V-stitch space, I'll go into that space and single crochet. So basically we will keep doing our chain 2, and every time there's a space, whether it's in the V or between the V's right there, we're going to do a single crochet. Chain 2. Now our next space is in the V. I think you're catching my gist here. Chain 2. And now we're going to go in the space between the V. Just like that. Look at that. I just love that look. And it's so subtle, so simple, but it just adds a little something to it. So see the plain one? And by all means, you can certainly leave it plain, absolutely. But we just wanted to kind of keep along in the lacy feel of it all, okay? So it's just going to give you a really nice little edging there. And that is going to be it for the top of your glove. See, we're getting there. So let's finish that off. We're going to slip stitch to join and you will fasten off. But I'll meet you back here in a moment. Okay, I've just done my last single crochet, and now I'm going to chain 2. I've gone into my last spacing here, and now I'm just going to chain 2, and I am going to slip stitch into that space there. And we are done. So I'm just going to pull that up, and I'm going to snip my yarn. And then I'm just going to fasten off here. And the top of our glove is finished. Love it. And now, of course, you're going to weave this end in. Okay. And again, I'll try that on. And you're going to make the same thing whether it's for the left hand or the right hand. So in this case, I'm just trying on my glove to make sure how it feels. And I really like that. So again, I'm making a point of making sure that it doesn't go too far beyond the knuckle. We want the bride to have nice, easy access to her ring finger. Now this is my right hand, so it doesn't really matter, but if I change hands here, okay, so, and this is just going to sit nicely like that. Like that just works out so beautifully for the thumb. Okay, and there we go. So that way, if she's wearing a ring, got nice, easy access. You can see it as well as have an appreciation for the glove. Just love that. Okay, guys, we're on to the cuff. Let's do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my pin. And let's get a slip knot on our hook first of all. So I've got a slip knot on our hook. And now we want to make sure that we find the very last stitch of this base row here, which is actually right there. It's going to take a little finagling, a little bit of patience. Now I'm going to match it up with the very last stitch of this row here. And I wish my camera would focus. There we go. So if you're not sure, just turn your work a bit that way. So you can see the V's, so I know my last stitch is right in here. So I'm just going to insert my hook. There we go. And we are going to slip stitch to join. So now we've got the bottom part of our glove joint. So now we have our thumb hole officially created. Okay, so let's go on to round one of our cuff. So what we're going to do is the same thing we did for the top of our glove here. So these two rounds are going to be identical to what we did in round 1 and 2 of the top. So we want to chain 1. And now we're going to go into the side of this stitch. Now this stitch got a bit stretched here, as you can see. So I'm just going to come down here a little bit. And these are little tricks that I use just to kind of close that in and not stretch it too much. And I'm going to do a single crochet there. So just like we did at the top, we're working into the sides of stitches for this first round. So I go into one stitch and then I go into the space. Okay. Now I'm going to go into the side of the next one. And then I'm going to go into the space. Okay. One single crochet into the side of each row. And again, you should end up with 27 stitches. Now, remember, if you end up with 26 or 28, the crochet police are not going to arrest you. So no worries whatsoever. So I'll meet you at the end of round 1 here. And I'm into my very last stitch of my row here. Is that my slip stitch? Right there. Move that tail out of the way. And I'm going to single crochet. And now I'm going to go into the very first single crochet where I chained 1. And I'm going to slip stitch to join. Just like that. Okay, and I'm just going to weave that tail in later. So round 2 will be the same as we did at the top. We're going to chain 1, and we're going to single crochet, 1 single crochet into each stitch. And again, I will end up with 27 stitches. And in fact, what we're going to do now for the cuff is we're going to repeat row 2. We're going to do the same thing in round 3 and round 4. So for the cuff of our glove, we are going to have 4 rounds of single crochet stitches. So round 1 that we just previously finished, we just worked into the side and then the space, the side and the space. Now for round 2, we have stitches to work into. So we're just going to work 1 single crochet into every stitch. Then round 3 and 4 are going to be done exactly the same. When you come back to the end, you'll slip stitch to join, chain 1, and begin the process all over again. So I am going to finish this round 2. I will meet you at the end again just to make sure that you're doing okay and you have a refresher. And I'll get you started on round 3, and then I'll set you loose for the other 2 rounds. But I'll meet you back here shortly. Okay, so I'm just at the very end here. And if you're ever unsure, because sometimes that first round just gets hidden, count your stitches back so that you make sure you have your 27 stitches. Or, see, I know that I slip stitched out of here, and that is my chain 1. Hope you guys can see that. Otherwise, if it's hard for you to see, it's a little bit tighter there. It's harder for you to see, just count back 27 stitches, and that should bring you back to your chain 1. So you can slip stitch to join. That closes off round 2. See what a nice finishing row it gives it. Okay, and now you're going to chain 1 and single crochet right away into that first single crochet, and that's what we're going to do for 2 more rounds. Okay, so you're going to keep doing 1 single crochet in each stitch for round 3 and round 4. I'm going to meet you at the end of round 4. Okay, I finished my 4 rounds, and I have something that looks like this. And again, I'm just going to take out my hook, and I'm going to give it a little try on, which I'm very excited about. And oh my goodness, look at how cute that is. I love it. So this is our cuff. So we have 4 rows of single crochets, right? And I'm going to pull that down a bit more. And again, it's just covering my knuckle. This is how my preference is. If you want to make it longer, absolutely, you can certainly do that. We've got beautiful spacing for our thumb gusset here. And now we're ready to go on to round 5 of the cuff. This is where we're going to add this super pretty little ruffly edge here. I'm just so in love with that, how that came out. So it's actually going to be very similar to what we did up here, with just one little adjustment. So we're going to come back up here. So round 5, how we're going to begin this round is we are going to chain 4 this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is going to count as a double crochet and chain 1. So down here we were working with half double crochets, and at the cuff, we're going to be working with double crochets. So I think you can see where we're going with this. We're going to do now a double crochet back into the same stitch. So you'll yarn over. Hopefully you're familiar at this point with double crochets. You'll pull up a loop. Well, that slip stitch is pretty tight in there. There we go. Okay. You'll yarn over to pull through the first 2 loops, then you'll yarn over to pull through the second 2. There you have our first V-stitch. So these are the double crochet V-stitches, okay? But now the other change that's going to be different, instead of skipping 2 stitches, we're only going to skip 1 stitch. So this would be the next stitch. We're going to skip that one and go into this one. We'll place 1 double crochet, pull through the first 2, and then pull through the second 2. You're going to chain 1, and then place another double crochet back into that same stitch. So the reason why we're not skipping 2 this time is because we do want our work to bunch slightly. This will create the little bit of that flare at the bottom. So see, the top stayed a little straighter, but here we're going to have that little extra flare, okay? And that's because we are skipping less stitches in between each one. So again, we go to the next stitch, we skip that one, and we go to the following one, and we do another double crochet V-stitch. So you have 3, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the next 2. Chain 1, and double crochet again. Pretty simple, right? So far we've only been using single crochets and double crochets, and look at what we're creating with such simple stitches, but it looks really complicated, doesn't it? I love it. Okay, so I'm going to do one more with you, and then I'm going to set you loose. You're going to skip the next one, and into the following one, you're going to do a V-stitch. Chain 1 and back in there. Okay, beautiful. Okay, guys, finish the round off, and I'll meet back up with you at the top again, okay? Okay, I've just finished my last V-stitch, and you should have 1 stitch left. Now, I know it looks like I have 2. I wish my darn camera would focus, but that's where we slip stitched out of. So it's actually what we call a false stitch. So we are going to find the top of our chain 3. Remember, we chained 4. We want to leave the 4th chain as the spacer. We're going to find the top of our 3rd chain, and that is where we're going to slip stitch to join. At the end of this round, you should have 13 sets of V's. Okay, so we join just like that. I know it's going to look like it's too stretched, but we're going to fix that in 1 second, so don't worry. Just wanted to show you guys your V's are looking like that, and you should have about 13 of them, okay? Now, round 6 is going to be the same as round 5, just like we did at the top, but now see that? We want to now slip stitch into the space this time. So that will fix that little gap there, but it also helps us to now start in the center of our first V, which is what we want. We're going to begin again by chaining 4. Remember, that counts as a double crochet and a chain 1, and right back into that same space, we're going to do a double crochet. We are almost there, guys. So as you can guess, we're going to place 1 V-stitch inside of each V-stitch of the previous round. Okay, so now into the next V space, I'm going to insert my hook, place 1 double crochet. Whoops, careful not to split your yarn. Chain 1 and another double crochet. Just like that. So we're going to do that all the way around for round 6. 1 V-stitch inside of each V-stitch. I'll meet you back here. Okay, and now we're finally finished round 6. We're going to find the top of our chain 3. And we're going to 1, 2, 3. We're going to slip stitch to join. And we are so almost done the cuff here. Okay, so there we have it. Okay. So look at how lovely that is. So these V's are definitely much longer than what we had at the top. And now we want to finish off with this gorgeous little ruffle edge. Super, super simple. You're probably going to die of laughter when I show you how simple creating this pretty little edge is. Okay, So our final round of our cuff. You are going to chain 1. And now right into the space here of that first V, we're going to do 3 single crochets. So we're going to do 1, 2, and 3. Just like that. See how it creates that little kind of a what I call little petal look. Now what we're going to do is in the space between the V's, we are going to slip stitch. Just really nice and easy like that. And it just kind of helps anchor this rounded shape. So each V is going to get a little topping to it, we'll say. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the very next V space and do the same thing. 3 single crochets. We'll insert our hook. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to go into the space between the V's and we're just going to slip stitch. Nice and easy. So by slip stitching, it really anchors down each side of the curve. Look at how pretty that is. Let's do it one more time. So I'm going to go into the space of the next V, and I'm going to place 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, and 3. So each V-stitch will get 3 single crochets. In the space between, we will just slip stitch. Just like that. Love it. So pretty. Okay, you know what to do. 3 single crochets, slip stitch, 3 single crochets, slip stitch, all the way to the end. I'll meet you there for the glorious slip stitch ending, and then we are finished with our cuff. And I'm just finishing my last V here. My last 3 single crochets. So excited. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into that space between, and I'm going to slip stitch, and then I'm going to chain 1, and now I'm going to cut my yarn off. Woohoo! Look at that. So that, now you can really see that really beautiful flare of the cuff there. I just love that. Okay, so we're going to snip our yarn. And now we can pull through that chain 1, and that secures our cuff beautifully. Look at that. So excited. Now, you could absolutely be done right now. You just try your glove on, weave in your ends. Look at how pretty that is. I just love that. Those longer V-stitches and the flare just created that really pretty look. So yes, indeed, you could absolutely be done, but I actually closed in my, I created a bit more of a gusset here for the thumb, just to give it a bit more of a finished off look. For me, I don't like to see this much of the thumb exposed in a fingerless glove like that. If I had done it another way, I probably would have closed it off more. But because of that, I'm just going to take this off to show you. That's why in this case, I went back and just created this really pretty little closure. It just closes the thumb in a little bit more. And for me, I just found like it gave it that little extra bit of classiness, if you will. So I am so excited. You see, it actually didn't take us that long at all. Super exciting. Okay, so now here's what we need to do. Let's clean up all these little ends. Let's weave them in so that they're kind of out of the way. And then we're going to jump into our thumb gusset. Okay, so we're down to the final stretch here. For those of you that would like to close up your thumb gusset a little bit like I did, we are moving on to that section now. And for those of you that don't, you are done. But for those that want to do the thumb, here we go. So we're going to need to attach new piece of yarn and place a slip knot on your hook. And where I started was at the bottom corner of my gusset here. So that's where I felt it was going to look the best to work with. So I'm going to find the stitch that's not right where I joined, but one over from that, one over to the right, which for me is right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my hook right there. And now it's going to get a little bit tricky sometimes because now we're working in a tighter space, but hopefully you can see that okay on camera. So I'm going to slip stitch to join. Just like that. Once I've joined it, what I'm going to do is chain 1, and I'm going to proceed to do what I call 3 double crochets together. It's a form of a decrease. So I want to basically smooth out this corner here, I'll call it, at the edge. So I've chained 1, and right where I slip stitched, I'm going to begin a double crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. Oops, my yarn's splitting. As if I'm going to do a regular double crochet, but I'm not going to resolve it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to yarn over, and right where I joined, which is right about there, I'm going to insert and begin another double crochet. So I'll yarn over and only pull through the first 2. So I have 3 loops on my hook, and technically I only have 2 double crochets that have not been resolved yet. I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to yarn over, and into the very next stitch right beside it, which is right there, I'm going to begin another double crochet. So I'll yarn over and pull through the first 2 only. So I have 4 loops on my hook, but hopefully you can see that, but I have 3 unresolved double crochets. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull through all 3. Now, some people might consider this a cluster stitch. I don't, because usually a cluster stitch is coming out of the same stitch, typically. So because we pulled 3 loops together, I call that a decrease, or 3 stitches together. Okay, moving on. What we're going to do next is we are going to do a traditional decrease in the next 2 stitches. So I'm going to yarn over, using a double crochet, I'm going to insert my hook, pull through, and do the first part of a double crochet, but don't resolve it. I'm going to yarn over and go into the next stitch, insert my hook, pull through, and only the first 2. So again, now I have 2 unresolved double crochets. What I will do now is yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. So you should be able to see that it's just kind of closing in this corner. Like when we seamed the 2 sides together, it actually created a bit of an actual corner. So what we're doing here with these decreases is just smoothing that out. So if I show you that here, see, we're just smoothing out the join so it does look a bit more circular. Okay, for me, I just found it looked a little bit more pretty. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So we'll yarn over and do 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and 3 double crochets. Just like that. So what we're trying to do is gain height along the bottom here so that it's going to even out a little bit more, almost like you're creating the finger of your thumb. The finger of your thumb, that doesn't make any sense. The finger hole, I guess, or the finger shape. I can't speak. Anyway, moving on to the next 3 stitches, we're going to place 1 half double crochet. So we're going to place 1 there. And so a half double is to go through all 3. There's the second one, and there's the third one. So as we come up to the top, we want to decrease the size of our stitches. So we want them a little longer on the bottom because we want to start evening out the height of that opening. So in the next 3 stitches, we're going to do 1 single crochet. So we're getting shorter into our stitches. So there's 1, there's 2, and it takes us perfectly to the last stitch just before the top join there. Okay, so you can see that's where we had joined that corner. What we're going to do now is we are going to double crochet 2 stitches together. So we're only going to do a regular decrease here, and it's just again to snuggle up that corner. So we're going to, using the single crochet stitch, we are going to insert our hook into the very next stitch. It can be a little tricky to see because this is where we slip stitched a lot of the times to go ahead. So we just worked out of that one, and it's going to be right there. Okay, so I pull 1 up, and then I go right away into the next stitch, which is right beside it. 3 loops, and then I pull through all 3. So hopefully you can see that what that does is it kind of bunches the 2 sides together. So it's going to smooth out that join there. And if you find that it looks a little gappy, so to speak, that's totally okay because the glove is lacy. So it'll be totally fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work the same order we worked along this side, only backwards. So now we're going to do 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So the very next stitch is here. 1, 2, and as you can probably see, or maybe you can't, but this is our foundation chain row we're working into at the moment. So they're going to be a little bit tighter. So you just want to gently take your time. There's the third one. And now we're going to work 1 half double crochet into each of the next 3. So we'll yarn over first, and the next stitch is right there. And the second one will be here. And then we have the third one right there. Okay. And then into the next 3 stitches, hopefully you've guessed it by now, we're going to do 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So we'll insert our hook. And we have the first one into the next stitch. We have the second one. And into the next stitch, we have the third one. Just get rid of that tail there. And some of you might end up with 2 stitches at the end, or you might end up with 1, just like me. So what I did with the other glove, because again, it depends on the slip stitching and how your stitches get counted. You may have 1 stitch, you may have 2 stitches left over. I had 2, so I decreased the last 2 to snuggle them in together. In this case, I only have 1. And I think it's because I skipped something here at the beginning, but no worry to panic. And this is why I love when this stuff happens, because I want, especially newer crocheters, it's not an exact science. It's an artistic science, I like to call it. So you have to make sure that it looks right. And other than that, it's a-okay. So I'm actually just going to do 1 double crochet here. So it'll still keep my stitch count the same at the end. So I've got a double crochet, and now I've come up to that very first decrease stitch where we did 3 together. See that big loop there? I'm just going to insert my hook, and I'm going to slip stitch to join. Your first round of your thumb gusset is complete. So you should have, if you did it exactly like I did, 22 stitches now going around the opening. So I'm going to just set that down there. So you can see how this side is taller than the top, and we're doing that because we want it to cup our thumb. So I'm just going to try this on here. Yeah, see, I like how that's just closing up the thumb a little bit more. It looks a bit more finished to me, and that's why I prefer to do that. Great. So the idea for this is we just want to close up this little part of the thumb here. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next round. Okay, round 2 of our thumb gusset. We're going to be using single crochets only, but we are going to be working into the back loops for this round. And the reason why I did that is I wanted to kind of keep the uniformity of these ribs kind of going a little bit throughout the thumb gusset. So we're going to chain 1, but we're still trying to snuggle in the bottom and the top corner here. So what we're going to do is we're going to decrease these first 2 stitches together. So right where I slip stitched and chained 1, I'm going to insert my hook and begin a single crochet. I'm not going to resolve it. I'm going to go into the very next stitch, pull it through, and now I'm going to pull my yarn through and resolve it. Okay, so actually, I should have done that in the back loops. So let's do that again. So because I'm working into the back loops only, I want to make sure that I catch those back loops. So hopefully you guys can see that if my camera decides to cooperate. So I'm going to go right into the back loop of that first stitch where I slip stitched out of. So I'm going to insert through there. And then I'm going to go into the very next stitch beside it into the back loop and pull up a loop. So I have 3, and now I'm going to resolve the single crochet. Okay, now we're going to do 1 single crochet into each of the next 8 stitches. So we're going to make sure we go through the top. We don't want to go through the side. We're going to insert and single crochet. Okay, so I've done a single crochet into each of the next 8. So now you can see that the ribbing is looking continuous. Okay, so that brings us up to the top corner of our glove. So we're going to do another decrease here. Again, we're just trying to snuggle these 2 corners together. So we're going to insert our hook into the very first stitch. Hopefully by now you've gotten a little bit more comfortable with decreases. And I'm going to go into there. Oh, see, I forgot again. We have to go into the back loops only. So I'm going to insert into the back loop. And I'm going to go into the next back loop. And now I will resolve it. Okay. And now I'm going to continue doing the same thing I did on the other side. I'm going to do 1 single crochet into the back loops only for another 8. So I've done my single crochet into the back loops for the next 8 stitches. I now have 2 stitches left. So I'm going to do 1 final increase at the top here. So I'm going to insert into the first and into the second. And now I'm going to resolve that stitch. Okay, and now I'm back to the beginning where I started. So that's where I slip stitched to join. So I am going to slip stitch to join there. This should now bring our stitch count to 19 stitches. So at the end of round 2 of your thumb gusset, you'll have 19 stitches. As always, if you have 18 or you have 20, it's not the end of the world. But if you're trying to keep exactly as how I'm doing, that's how many I have. We've got 1 more round to our thumb gusset, and then we're pretty much finished. So round 3, nice and simple. So we're going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch and into the back loops only again. Okay, so we're going to start off round 3 by chaining 1. And then we're going to go into that back loop and single crochet. So this should be something that you've gotten lots of practice at this point. Okay, so you're going to go all the way to the very end of your round, but you want to skip the very last stitch. Okay, so you're basically going to do it into 18 stitches. Okay, so I'll meet you at the end when you've got 1 stitch left. Okay, so I've done my single crochets into the back loops right to the end. Whoops. And I've got 1 stitch left. So I want to do one last little mini decrease here. So I'm going to insert into the back loop only of the last stitch, but I'm not going to resolve it. I'm going to decrease it into my slip stitch, if that makes sense. And the reason why I still like to go into it, because I just like the idea of kind of keeping those stitches fastened closely together. I could simply just skip the last one, but sometimes that leaves a bit of a gap, and I kind of like to keep my stitches snuggled in. So I've started the single, but now I'm going to go into the full stitch of the very last one there, and I'm just going to slip stitch through everything. See that? So it just snuggles it in together. And good news, guys, we are done. So there is the thumb gusset. So you see, it just gives it this really lovely finish. So let's snip our yarn, and we will tie off. Yay, we're done. So I'm just going to do, again, a quick little try on here. And look at that. I am so, so happy with that. So you see the double crochets here gave a little flare to our cuff, and the thumb gusset, see it just kind of closes in around the thumb a little bit more nicely and snugly. To me, that looks more like a finished glove. And there we have it. So I'm just going to quickly sew in a couple of these ends so it's not distracting. And then we're going to add the final touch, which is our sweet little ribbon. Okay, so I've sewn in my ends here, and now I'm going to add in my sweet little embellishment. Now, like I said, I keep, whoops, see that? Every time I have a garment that has one of these ribbons on the inside, I cut them out and I keep them. I mean, look at how long this is. Definitely this can be put to good use. So I've got a bunch of them in here. So I had this really pretty pink one. Now you may, depending on the wrist of your bride, you may need something that's a little bit longer to create stretch, or you may simply just want to add it to the front and not feed it through the side. Like for me, I've got kind of a thicker hand, so this probably wouldn't be long enough. But for someone like Katrina's wrist or hand, her hand was, I mean, I didn't tie it as tightly as I did. She was able to kind of slip her hand right through. So completely up to you. I'm going to show you both ways. First way is really simple. Just kind of figure out where your front is. So as you can see, this was I chose this as my left hand. So this is the right hand. So I would just find somewhere where it's relatively in the middle. So I'm going to choose this little V right here. And so I'm going to feed it in through that first row of V's. And I'm just going to use my hook to keep things nice and simple. If it'll work. I can just push it through like that. Push it through the back and push it through the front. Okay, so I can just keep it like that and then tie a really pretty bow. And again, this is more for a vintage type of bridal accessory. So you can do it like that. I would snip this so that it's shorter. If that's what you're going to do. And now I can still easily put that on. So you're just going to That actually might look pretty with the long ribbon too. So that's kind of another option. Actually, I like that more than I thought I would. So it just kind of sits really nicely on the wrist, so you can do it like that. Or if you got someone with a little bit of a thinner wrist, or you've got more ribbon, I mean one or the other, what you can do is you can feed it through back and forth. So I'm just going to take this out. And I want this V to be in the center, so I'm going to feed it in through. So that's what I did with the other one. I fed it in and out through the V stitches. So I just used those as my eyelets. So see that? So one V is in front. Now this V is going to be behind, and I'm going to push it through to the back. And I'm sure you've seen this done in other tutorials, especially if you've seen it in any of my bag tutorials, a shoe bag tutorial, the wine bottle tutorial, all kinds of cinch tops. This is generally how you're going to do it. So you can see that it's being fed in through, and you're going to do that all the way around. Ideally, it would be nice if you could have both ends coming up through the center on either side of this V. So I'm going to finish feeding this through, and let's see if that happens for me. Okay, so it looks like I've gotten lucky. So I've got one more V. I'm going to poke it down in between. And now I'm going to bring it up through the same, which is fantastic. If it doesn't happen that way, it's not a big deal. You're going to tie a knot. Again, I never stress too much about these things. So that's just nice when it comes out the same one. It's just kind of a nicer look there. And then I'm just going to tie a little knot first, nothing too tight. And then I'm going to create my bow, and you can do that in whatever fashion you like. And so my ribbon is a little bit short here, but I also like this look too because it just keeps things tidy and out of the way. And there you have it. Sweet little bow. And you have your matching glove. I just so love that. I'm more partial to the vintage eccentricities or the vintage style. So I absolutely adore these gloves. So, and of course, as you've seen, our beautiful newlywed bride, Katrina, also modeled these gloves as well, and they just look divine with her dress, as well as with our February wrap. So the wrap, because her dress was really just thin straps on the top and she had bare shoulders, once we put that February wrap around her and then she wore the vintage gloves with it, I mean, to me, she just looked like something out of Gone with the Wind. I absolutely loved it. And so there you have it. Here is a wonderful accessory. It'll also make for a lovely gift if you know somebody that's getting married, or for any occasion really. But I had so much fun working on this. I'm just so happy it came out so lovely, so pretty. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. And if you have any questions, please stop by, say hi, ask away. You can find me on Instagram at The Stitch Sessions. And of course, you can always pop me a comment in the comment box down below. Super easy, super quick. And if you haven't already, press that subscribe button. That way you'll be up to date every time I upload a new video. So I upload every Wednesday morning religiously. I so love having you all come along on my crochet journey. It is my absolute pleasure to share any thoughts, observations, or answer any questions that you may have. So in the meantime, guys, have a wonderful day. Happy crocheting and take care.